and welcome to Off the Roll. I'm your host, Trey Hirschman. Today we're talking to Tim Lentych. Tim is a 2002 Ball State alum from the athletic training program and is currently the head athletic trainer for the New York Yankees, so he's fresh off the World Series. Tim has been with the Yankees for 21 years, and that's a pretty awesome career to have in professional baseball for sure. We're also joined, co-host-wise, Neil Hazen is back to help me out with this podcast, and I'm excited about having Neil with this as well. We have some great interaction with Tim on this podcast. So let's go off the roll with Tim Lentych. Welcome to Off the Roll. I'm your host, Trey Hirschman. I'm joined today with Neil Hazen as my co-host, and today we're talking to Tim Lentych. Tim is the head athletic trainer for the New York Yankees and a 2002 Ball State alum. Tim, how you doing?
I'm good. How you doing, Troy? How you doing, Neil?
Doing great, Tim. It's sure good to see you.
Yeah, it's great.
Nice to see you guys too.
So I'm going to kick this off a little bit with the same question I've asked everybody, is that, number one, where's your hometown at?
I live in Tampa, Florida currently, but I grew up in South Bend, Indiana.
Okay. And in your time in South Bend, how did you get interested in athletic training? What kind of got you started a little bit?
Ironically, my dad went to Ball State and is a graduate of Ball State, and my sister was at Ball State currently before I made a decision on going to school anywhere else. Still with my mom in South Bend, and didn't really know what I wanted to do. And after my freshman year in college at Ball State, took all the general study classes. I was actually getting ready to do my classes for the semester, my sophomore semester in the fall before summer break. And I saw a brochure out of the thousands of brochures that we had, in the guidance counselor rooms, right? There was one that stood out. It was a red one that said Ball State athletic training, and I picked it up. And I would say the rest is history. I fell in love with it. And if I couldn't play sports like I played in high school, and obviously I only played baseball, but I just wanted to be part of it. So I started taking the prereq classes, and it went from there.
Yeah. So you pick out a pamphlet, you decide to kind of take the prerequisite classes. Do you remember doing some of your observations and who you observed with?
Yeah, I did swimming and diving with Jen. It was Jen, and then Erica Guardian.
Yeah.
She was part of it. She was my first kind of student, and then Brian Hatzel with baseball.
Yeah.
Brian Hassel with baseball, and then obviously I did a semester with Neil and Sean with football.
Yeah,
I think those are kind of my three rotations that I did end up doing for hours.
Yeah, those are pretty solid rotations with some pretty solid folks too.
Yeah.
Neil, do you remember Tim as an observer?
I'll tell you what, there were a lot of observers that went through, but Tim's one of those that stuck out just from his background story and everything that he was doing. But obviously not as well as we got to know him as time moved on. But just some great early days there. What year would that have been, Tim? Would that have been like 90, 98?
98. 97 was my first year. Yep, it was 98.
Yep. So it's a bit of a toss back. That would have been just starting my third year as head athletic trainer, I guess. Yeah.
So you do the observations, and your group, when I've talked to them, like Jamie Bros and Eckerly and stuff, do you remember, like, you apply to get in the program, you get the interview? Do you remember who kind of did your interview when you sat down for that?
Oof.
I know it's tough.
No, I want to say it was Sean. Might have been Jen Herod, and I want to say Teresa for some reason too as well. But it might have been those three that did it. It was somewhere right around that end.
Yeah, and nobody asked you any really difficult, unusual question. No.
No. I mean that at least I know of, right? I'm forgetting who was actually in there, let alone what the questions they asked. I was probably so nervous. I wanted to get in. I was so nervous, and I had so much fun with the rotations, and I was just nervous. I didn't think twice, right?
Yeah. 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 I think sometimes, and that's the thing. I try not to put people on the spot during these podcasts, but I think it's interesting that some people have some things that stick out. They start thinking back a little bit and they stick out and they're like, oh yeah, I remember that. And this happened, or I never really told anybody this, but this is something that happened that like it really stuck in my head through that experience.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
So do you remember your class? I mean, your class that you came in with, do you remember kind of who that group was?
Some of them, not all of them.
Yeah.
Because there was some changes, right?
Yeah.
I know obviously Jason and Sarah, obviously we communicate more often than a lot of people, but no, it's kind of mix and match. Some people in, some people out, but a lot of the older people were very helpful too as well that were in the program already. So we kind of had a good mesh of people in the program at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Neil, any thoughts on that? Do you remember a little bit of that group?
Yeah. Yeah. So, gosh, I remember that the era. Trying to remember that specific class is a little challenging, but
I know
there was Jason Hines and Pam Lickfelt, were they in that same class or were they a class ahead or below? Because Sam or Jason Hines and Sarah McGriff,
I think they're year before,
and Pam Lickfelt, they at one point they were roommates. But I couldn't remember because Eck was definitely in your class and Sarah was definitely in your class, right?
Yeah.
And then I need to get a cheat sheet to do all these things.
There's so many right? There's so many that run through there. But yeah. I would say collectively, just kind of doing my homework on some of these classes and stuff. I mean, it seems like Ball State Athletic Training had classes that came in waves, where you had some very strong classes that came through. So, as the program got more developed, you had some classes in the late 70s with Rex and John Fostick and Ken Evans and Tony Cox. Those classes in the late 70s, early 80s were pretty strong. And then when Rex got here, he had Mark Lito, Dave Jessup, Angie Miller, myself, Dave Weichel, Jeremy Hunt. I mean, there was these waves of classes that came through, and your group was kind of in one of those big waves where you had a lot of people that came, not only in your class but above you and below you that went on and did some pretty cool stuff with that. Because you graduated in 2002, so you got to Ball State in 1998. Is that correct?
97.
97.
I took a year off because of the internship with baseball.
Okay.
So,
yeah. So the thing is that you were kind of on the tail end of Rob Hunt and Mike Miller and those. Even if you want to go a little further back, Brian Jones and stuff like that. I mean, that was kind of that group there came through, and then your group kind of started up and came through, and a lot of great alumni that came through that group with that class, and then that kind of bridged off to the early 2000 when I came back in 2003, so on and so forth with that. And I think that's what's really cool about the program is that you have these groups of people that have come through together, that were connected together, that have influenced different types of things in the profession, whether big, small, whatever. They've all had an impact on it. And I think that's what's really cool about that. So do you remember like what your first sport assignment was once you got in the program?
Yeah, I was with field hockey with Teresa.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She was great. I couldn't ask for anything better to start off. It was, let alone doing the rotations but doing field hockey with Teresa, and we actually won the MAC that year. We had Neil, who was the, Troy, you may know, who's the Zimbabwe player from that was, she scored everything. She was amazing.
And she came back and was our coach for a year. Sally Northcroft. Yeah.
She was amazing. It was I had no idea about field hockey whatsoever. And it was just great to kind of learn that way. And obviously noticing how many low back injuries we have of how they played the sport, right?
Right.
Just kind of like go through it. And Sally was good. Teresa was a good guidance, and she helped out a lot to start off. Kind of calmed me down a little bit, right? To try to be on my own a little bit and give me a little bit of leeway. And, while still trying, hey, you have questions about classes, and trying to get all the anatomy classes and, start the program and try to get used to putting the two together with sport and watching it versus, you can't really rely on the book, but yet this is your guideline. That's your baseline.
Yeah. Yeah. Teresa's somebody I'd love to get on the podcast here. I just need to kind of connect with her a little bit, but I think
I still talk to her.
Yeah. I think
she actually came to a playoff game that we had with the Yankees in Kansas City. Her and her dad, I got them tickets.
Yeah.
Because they're huge Royals fans.
Until they became Yankee fans.
Yeah.
All right, this is my visitor. Come here. I
saw the door open up behind you.
Yeah. Anyway, at least it wasn't one of my kids, so that was good.
I do remember, Neil, two more people, Brooke Bailey and Jeremy Payne.
Yes.
That was my class.
Yeah, that's right. And
those two of those.
Yep.
I know Jeremy went to chiropractic school.
Right.
And then I don't think Brooke's still at Louisville, but last time I checked, I don't think she's in it anymore.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the last time I saw her was one of our last times out at St. Louis. I think we ran into her down there.
And Chester was in there too, correct? When he graduated, 2001? 2000? Yeah.
Right before. Yeah.
And Chester and Travis was with Chester, right?
Yeah. So even I would start to.
Yeah, no, and that's the beauty of this. You start throwing out names, and then you're like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. It's cool.
Pam may have been in that class too.
I think so. Yeah.
So
that's what I mean is that there was a really good group in that period, the late 90s, early 2000s that had a lot of really good athletic trainers and a lot of them still kind of practicing today a little bit with that. So, so field hockey with Teresa, again, you're right. I mean, how could you not have a great first experience with Teresa? And not have the, just kind of be able to learn the ropes and stuff like that, because I'm assuming that your athletic training knowledge, other than being an athlete in high school, was still pretty limited, other than the classes and stuff, right? I mean, so great first experience with Teresa. Then where do you go next?
I think I did because field hockey was in the fall, and then I did a spring football at that time. Obviously, off season stuff, but I went to a kind of a spring football with those guys to go through that spring semester.
Yeah, good. Yeah, not a golden time for Ball State football, even in the spring. No. So, but
wow.
So
I remember those days. I remember Randy Moss. Randy Moss came.
Yeah.
And he scored the 5 touchdowns in the first half.
Right over the top, it was an O or L ball.
Oh my gosh!
He had a foot and a half on him.
Yeah,
he just threw it up high, and he just jumped up and caught it.
Yeah, and that was before he transferred, or he transferred from, I think, Florida State or wherever he went from to Marshall. Yeah, and he just I remember watching that game. He just tore us up.
And you had Chad Pennington throwing to him. That didn't help either.
That didn't help either. Yeah, that didn't help.
It was it seemed like that at that time Marshall was just basically so much better than anybody else in the
Yeah.
MAC at that time, right? I mean,
I think they came in and won the first 4 years. I think they won the MAC title first 4 years.
yeah.
Right when they switched to divisions too, and they ran over everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
The budget they had allotted for football was about the size of the rest of the MAC's budget for all their sports. Made a little bit of a challenge, and then they had
probably
the 1AA jump up to 1A. So they, for a couple of years there, they had some leniency on, players they were able to get in under their old system or players they already had in.
Yeah.
I think Randy Moss may have been one of those that they were able to get in before all that stuff hit. But
yeah.
and they were a machine, that's for sure.
Well, and Carrico was Jeff there at that time? Was Carrico there at that time?
I think John Messenger was initially the head athletic trainer there and worked football.
Right.
But Jeff probably left Northern. It had to be soon after that. I'd say within the first 2 years, probably.
Yeah.
So by just about the time Tim was getting settled into the program, I'm thinking Jeff was probably just getting to Marshall.
Yeah. So at this point, you've gotten through your first year. When do you take this year off to go to with the Orioles?
I didn't take it till the end, so it was kind of like my last year. So 01, I took obviously spring training starts in February, so I took off that spring semester of 01, and once that was done, went through like spring training, extended spring training, and then the Gulf Coast League with the Baltimore Orioles at that time, and obviously Hatsel had some ties back to there, and
right,
a lot of guys had some good ties back there to from Ball State, so it was kind of almost a tradition type thing. It was like, okay, let's get another Ball State guy. They've been good in the past, and it was kind of good to carry on a tradition a little bit. So I end up doing all the different seasons of baseball of and finishing up Gulf Coast, and that was right in September. And I only needed one class to graduate, which happened to be in 2000 2002. I can't remember which one it was. They didn't offer it in the fall in 01. So I actually just took off the whole semester, and then I took that class in 02. And then I graduated in the May of 02.
Yeah. So how was it? I mean, had you been thinking about was baseball your ultimate goal, or was this like, hey, I'm going to do this and see how this works out, and if I think this is what I really want to do, then I'm going to go pursue this? Or kind of what was your thought process on this?
I mean, I grew up baseball my whole family life. My dad was involved in it. He was the head coach or assistant coach at Notre Dame for 12 years.
Okay.
From 76 to 88. So, and then when he left Notre Dame, he went to our high school at Mishawaka Marion in South Bend. So he wanted to kind of coach us and then retire kind of from baseball and just watch us, right, and see where we grew.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my dad passed away in 96. So I kind of, from that point on, I wanted to really put my foot forward and just keep going, right? I found something I really liked in athletic training. I really continued to study. I had great people to kind of around me and surround me every day. And, I just wanted to continue baseball. And it's great that I didn't do a rotation in baseball because I learned something else on different sports. And that's what I'm very thankful for the staff to not put me in baseball, even though I did a prerequisite rotation with it. But I'm very gracious that they put me somewhere else, like field hockey, football, all those other sports that it's totally different than baseball.
Right.
So I didn't know that at the time, right, until I kind of started going through the program and, took off from there. And you don't realize it, right? You get so mad. Like, why don't they put me with baseball? That's what I want to do. But I saw what they did, and I learned a lot as I kept on going through the program.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I had a similar experience when I went to Utah for grad school because I was supposed to work football, and I said, this is where I want to be at. This is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. And then when Bill Bean set me down and said, hey, the guy that we're going to have work women's gymnastics can't pass his test, and we need a certified athlete trainer in gymnastics. And I'm like, oh crap, I don't know anything about gymnastics. I guess I'm going to figure it out. And I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. It's okay to go figure some stuff out and then put those tools in your toolbox and go use them wherever your destination is at. I think Neil, you probably have some same experiences too. I mean, the things that you've done over your career, you've put a lot of tools in your toolbox for sure.
Yeah, I mean, over the years, having not only worked with but traveled with every one of the teams we had, including going back to, we still had men's indoor outdoor track and cross country. I traveled with all those teams, so I learned a lot about it. But I think one of the, I had done so much football early on, very fortunate with that, and then and had a lot of swimming and tennis thrown in the mix of that. That was a lot of my upbringing. But then when we had a staff change late, I ended up working with field hockey one year, and I was kind of like you with the move to gymnastics and Tim through all those other sports. Man, I don't know much about that. I mean, I didn't, all I knew about the rules was they were very complicated and nobody really knew what they were.
Right.
But no, but like you guys just described, you figure it out, and then now you look back and what an experience that was and what that added, to my opportunities and abilities down the road. I mean, but going through it initially, you're like, man, I don't know about this, but right. Afterwards, it was a very positive experience.
Yeah,
for sure.
So you graduate in 2002, and you've had this professional baseball experience, but you kind of take another sidetrack in your GA position. So let's talk about that a little bit. You went to the University of Tennessee. Were you originally like, hey, I got to go get my master's, or maybe I want to go try to do professional baseball and see where that leads me? I mean, kind of what was your thinking on that?
I think a couple of things. The way athletic training was going at that time, there was wind around, be like, you have to have your master's in order to kind of get that, an assistant spot, right?
Right.
It wasn't totally that way yet, but it was kind of like more leaning that way. We're going to at least do a graduate assistant spot, and, you go from there. So my other point of trying to decide of grad school or not was the Orioles did offer me a contract. But it was at that time period in 2001, it was for $15,000 to start off.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, it was a part-time, and I was like, okay, I can balance that out. But I really wanted to go back to school and finish it now instead of waiting a couple of years and see where I'm at. I didn't think I would ever go back to school. So I wanted to stay fresh in it. And so that's why it led me to apply for other schools, but I landed on Tennessee. I went to go visit there, and just where it was with the SEC program and the conference, I kind of wanted to go a little bigger, and I loved it there. It was great. It was great experience. Same thing happened again when I got accepted there. Is the sports that were available were crew, or rowing, and softball, and women's swimming and diving. So at that time, there's still split athletic departments. Yeah. Men's was on a separate side, women's on a separate side. Kind of like a combo of some administration stuff, but there's still a whole separate athletic training room for men and women. And I didn't know that at the time when I applied. And the staff there knew that I really enjoyed baseball and wanted to be in baseball. They did not give me softball. They gave me women's swimming and diving for that reason.
Yeah.
And it was the same scenario that happened at Ball State that happened at Tennessee, that I was very thankful that they gave me swimming and diving. And I love swimming and diving now. I cannot ask for anything more, especially during the Olympics. I love it.
Yeah. And it didn't hurt that you had two other classmates that ended up working swimming and diving in the SEC, which I always think is, and in Jason's podcast, we talked about that a little bit. Like I go, that's crazy. I mean, you have three Ball State alums that are kind of in the same situation, and they're working at three different SEC schools with swim and dive, and
Yeah.
um, I mean that's like again the 6 degrees of separation is that usually so you would think that okay somebody's working I'm going here somebody's going there and they're working this but no you three so you get to see each other at SEC swim and
All the
dive
time.
championships those last 2 years yeah
Yeah, all the
Yeah.
time. It was great seeing them.
yeah
Familiar faces. And it made it great. You see a familiar face that, at Georgia where Sarah was at or where Eck was at. It makes it so much easier that you know that you're taken care of.
yeah 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 that was of course Jason shared a little story about something you can dispute you can dispute it or you can just say move on we're good
So tell us the real story.
yeah tell us
Yeah,
your
right.
side of the story yeah
Which story was that one?
well he said he had to cover the SEC championships for you because you had been out a little bit late the night before
Oh, yeah. It was. I'm not going to deny it. That's for sure. But we had some fun, and thank God the swimmer and divers, the girls were good with me. But I eventually made it there, and I didn't miss much. So swimming and diving, there's so many people around the pool that you get lost in the shuffle.
yeah they didn't I don't know where he's at. I don't know where Tim's
Yeah.
at. Yeah, hey, he went to the bathroom or
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. You can do it that way easily. Swimming and diving. There's so many people around, especially at that SECs. There's so many people.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing is that I think that we've all been there. I mean, there's been I mean, the story I tell is that I decided to throw a party for the MAC track championships back in I think '92, and I asked Rex. I
91.
said, "Can I invite all the students? Because that's all back then. That's all who covered it was the students." And it happened to be the same time that the MAC staff they used to coordinate their MAC meetings with the track meet. And so Rex said, sure. So I sent out this invite. I had all these people at my house. We were instead of doing keg stands, we were taping ankles, doing that. And I was good. I showed up at the track meet the next day, but nobody else did. And especially the two Kent State athletic trainers, students, they couldn't make it. So Fostick had to come over and cover track and field that day. He couldn't go to his meeting and he was none too happy about it, I think. And down the road, I think it came back to haunt me. But yeah, I mean, we've all been
That
there.
happens. Yep, that happens.
We've all been there. But
Oh, yeah.
but no, I think that's the thing is that like you said, it's not only that you have a ton of people around there, but again, you had a good friend that hey, I got you, don't worry about it, type thing, and
Yep.
even though he wants to sell you out on a podcast, but
Of course.
I'll
Of course he does.
let you guys work that out. So.
Yeah, of course he does. That's Eck. That's Eck for you. I'll get him. I'll give him a shout out or a text later today.
Yeah. So so the swim and dive experience is still a lot of upper extremity type stuff. I mean, do you think that experience kind of helped you out going down the road when you did start out with some baseball stuff?
Yeah. Again, I didn't realize it right at the time. I was like, I went softball, but yeah, I think they did it again on purpose, just to, even though it might have been a bilateral shoulders, right? Because they always use them a little bit more than what a pitcher would do or a position player. But yeah, they did it. They did it on purpose so I can get that experience. And even some of the lower body injuries that you wouldn't think for swimming and diving, the way a breaststroker kicks their legs underwater and puts a lot of strain on the medial knee. There's a couple girls that had some tendonitis on the inside of their knee that I had to look up the mechanics of the legs and the breaststroke and how they, got through the water, and it made total sense. Yeah. So it's just developing what you should know of where you want to go, and then obviously learning a little bit more as you in diving into the sport.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that again, with my experience with gymnastics, I had to learn gymnastics moves and and technique and stuff like that, to the point now where if I'm watching, just probably like you're watching a swim meet, you can sit there and explain to people what's going on. I can watch a gymnastics meet, and just like the Olympics, I'm like, oh, look at that Tkachev, that's awesome, or look how much higher they got on that or something. And even though it's been, you know, 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, it's you still, that stuff just sticks with you. And I think that I pulled out some stuff at the high school where I'm at now where I'm like, yeah, this is an old gymnastic tape job, but it might work for you and what you're dealing with. And so yeah, I think that's the thing, is that you just never know. You just never know what you can learn with any experience. And that's what I would encourage people to take into account if they're in a situation that maybe it's at the time, like you talked about, it's not the most optimal situation, but it's something you can learn from.
Yeah.
So
there's a tape job that I learned diving, because obviously the athletic tape, there's a tape job with the athletic tape, right? If it gets in the water, it doesn't stick to itself. So we had a diver that tore her tricep from the platform, and we were going through a tape job, and I had to turn it inside out. So the sticky adhesive had to go in the adhesive part as we go through it, and it ended up just sticking. So the water never affected it, and it actually stuck as she went through her dives.
Yeah.
I actually take it into with the Yankees. I do it every once in a while on a hot summer day, and the guys need it. I will do it on a wrist, and someone really needs it, I'll turn it inside out.
Yeah.
And it actually works. It's there.
Yeah.
I learned it back from swimming and diving.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's like the little things you pick out of the sports that still continue with you, like you said.
and then you're kind of like, I can't believe I'm still doing this.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
I can't believe I'm still pulling this out of my bag. Yeah.
Yep.
So you finish up at Tennessee. Are you just kind of seeing what's out there in baseball? Do you still have some connections with the Orioles that's kind of guiding you along? Kind of talk to me a little bit about kind of what your basically job search was like coming out of grad school.
Yeah, I kind of knew obviously being with the Orioles, I knew the system of, when they start hiring. So it's usually in the fall. So they can prepare for spring training, which starts in February of Major League camp, and then minor league camp starts usually in March. So I knew that they would start hiring in the fall before, and then they can get down to the spring training side of Arizona or Florida just to kind of get acclimated to the organization, right? So the fall, going into my second year at Tennessee, I started applying for jobs, knowing that I just have my thesis to finish. I had to present my thesis in the spring, but I never went to classes in the fall. I just had to go to the library. I did a lot of research, right, the whole fall, and then the same thing in the spring. So I didn't really have to take a lot of class. So I was applying for jobs, and one of them was the Milwaukee Brewers job that I applied for, and I interviewed. And they were like, "Can you come in February?" And I was like, "No, I'm not going to do this. I'm 3 credit hours away spring semester to finish my thesis. So I'm going to continue to stay here. I just don't want to leave, right? I'm so close. I just don't want to do that."
Yeah.
And that corner at the time, I still talk to him. We have a part-time job available in Staten Island, New York, but here's Mark Littlefield's contact him, and you guys can discuss some stuff, but appreciate meeting you. And I moved on to the next team. So then I interviewed, or actually called Mark Littlefield and sent him my resume, and I flew to Tampa, Florida to do the interview, and it was a great interview, but I thought I did a terrible job. Awful. I'm like 2 hours into it and sitting in Mark's office after meeting with everyone else, right? And Mark's like, "All right, do you want to go home early?" I'm like, "Oh man, I bombed this thing so bad. There's no way I got this. I cannot believe he just said, 'Do you want to go home early?'" And I'm like, "God, what do you say?" And he goes, "Well, do you have any more questions?" And I'm like, "No, you guys answered everything that I had and thought, and I'm good." He goes, okay, we'll switch your flight and you can go back to Knoxville early.
Yeah. What am I doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Must have had it on twice.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Or
I'm,
three times. I think
that's
I've
all
had it on
right.
twice.
That's the sci-fi version of the podcast.
You're welcome, everyone.
Absolutely.
A little extra excitement there.
Leave it up to Neil.
Yeah. Neil's flying in on the flying saucer, you know.
Yeah.
He and Elon, they're coming in together.
You're a high-tech expert here.
That is great, Neil. So yeah, they took me to the airport, and after I went to lunch with the assistant medical coordinator now, and he's still here. I still sit to him next to him on a daily basis when I go into work, and we went to Chili's right down the street, and Chili's is still up, same building, same everything. And then they took me to the airport, and I was on the flight and thought I'd never work in baseball again because I just bombed an interview, right?
Yeah.
Why'd they kick me out 2 or 3 hours earlier? And I'm like, all right, I got time to move on. I guess got to finish my thesis, so let's do that. And by that time, I think it was December, and come around that time because it was November when I flew out there. He said he would let me know by the holidays and stuff. So I think I didn't hear him till January, and then they offered me a job January of 2002. Or no, sorry, January 2004.
Yeah.
And when was the interview?
In 2003, in the fall of 2003.
So it was 5 or 6 months probably till they offered you the job.
No, I did it. The interview was in November of 2003, and it was only a couple months later.
So okay, just a couple months then. Yeah.
Yeah, it was only They told me in January, and they actually sent me some T-shirts and stuff. Mark was good to send some T-shirts and kind of feel like I'm aboard, right? And even though I'm missing spring training, and all the guys are busting their butt during a 6-week period of getting up at 4 a.m. to work until 5, 6 o'clock at night, and I'm the one still in school and finishing up my master's, right?
And you really didn't know until they called you in January.
Yeah, I didn't know until January.
What another great story! Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, were you surprised? I mean, were you like, I didn't think I was going to hear from you after the interview? I mean,
yeah, I told him that too, and I just kind of moved on because I knew, not in a bad way. I just moved on because I had to finish my thesis. I had to defend it in April.
Yeah,
and I had it all lined up, and I'm going through numerous meetings with analytic people, calculus people, stats people to kind of put the last bit on my thesis in order to defend it in April, beginning in April. And so I didn't think twice, and I was like, you know what, I got one more semester left. Let's do it. I continue to keep pushing forward with swimming and diving practice in the morning, library right after.
Right.
Going to the training room to get them ready for another practice, and then boom, going to the second practice for swimming and diving. And I just kept on pushing forward, and then he called, and I was like, oof, some relief. And then he said, once you graduate in May, when you go to graduate, come down to Tampa. And I did it. A week later, I flew down to Tampa, Florida after I graduated.
Well, I mean, they're obviously. Did they ever tell you why they felt like the interview went short, or were they convinced at that point in time, or kind of what was their? Did they ever explain that?
Yeah, he did. Fortunately for me, that they liked it and liked my answers, I guess.
Yeah.
And he's like, we heard everything we needed to hear, and we already made a decision. So
yeah,
I was like, all right, that's good for me. I didn't know you freaked me out.
No doubt.
I'm on the flight starting to drink, and I'm like, oh God, this not gonna go
well. Well, and you were worth waiting for. I mean, that was really the really cool thing was that I mean, obviously they were very impressed with your interview, to say, okay, we're good, and without telling you that, and then turning around and going, hey, we're cool. Go finish your thesis and stuff, and we'll see you in May. That speaks a lot to your personality and your connect with them, and again, it's to find the right person in the right place is so important. And um, it's not very often that you get an opportunity to find those people that just fit with what you're trying to do. And you obviously did an awesome job in the interview, but you were willing to wait for, and I think that's really cool. So,
Yeah.
so
Came full
first,
circle for sure.
yeah, yeah, first season in Staten Island. How was that? How was your first season in baseball?
It was an experience for sure. Going through extended first and trying to learn Spanish, right? And you think back, you're like, man, I should have really listened in high school and took that Spanish class, or like I should have really pursued it more.
Yeah,
I had no idea, right? And it's a different culture, different. You get to really blend with them, and they're great. They come from either backgrounds of their families, and you just got to mesh with them. And they're coming to the United States. They want to be blended into the United States just as much as we do, right? With kids from college, kids from high school. So, going through the extended was an experience alone to prepare for going up to Staten Island by myself and running a team, which and that goes back to my schooling is that, Teresa helped me out, let me by myself. And then I had Jen Harrod was women's basketball at Ball State. She gave me, a little bit more leeway because it was a little bit more into the program. And then my last one, I finished up with Neil with men's volleyball. Neil didn't even make a trip. I mean,
yeah,
he gave me and the other student athletic trainers, the athletic training student, he never traveled. He trusted us.
yeah,
And then I go to Tennessee, and you're all by yourself being certified, and that got me ready for Staten Island. It got me. I just had to get ready for the area, but I'd never been in New York that long, and it speaks volumes because at that time, obviously, you watch baseball and you're like, man, what players make to the big leagues?
right.
This is a first round. This is a prospect. This is so and so. So you kind of go through the program and seeing these guys come and getting drafted, and then you're like, all right, let's see what you can do on the field. And it was only 70, I think it was 76 games. That's it. We
Yeah,
weren't really good at all. We were terrible, but a lot of good guys that came out to it that I actually, it was funny how they're coaches now that I actually was the athletic trainer for back in 2004 when I first started. It comes full circle again
yeah.
that they're coaches in the big leagues.
Yeah, it's kind of your version of being what I call a generational athletic trainer. So it was funny because Brian Jones had posted something on Facebook this week, and he said, I'm so happy to, I took care of this kid's dad that he just signed with Toledo, and I said, when you become a generational athletic trainer, you're officially old. You're officially old now, Brian, because I mean, I had that moment when Chandler Thompson, who played back in the late 80s, early 90s, and I was a student athlete trainer, and I would take care of Chandler with Tony, and then his son Josh shows up about 2015, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm taping a kid's ankle that I taped his dad's ankles. I'm officially old now. Yeah. I'm
Absolutely.
officially old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Um, so, so it kind of give us an idea from a baseball standpoint. Your ultimate goal is obviously working your way up to where you are now. Um, is that something that after every season there's opportunities to move up, or are you kind of looking and seeing what's out there, or you see other people move up or people leave or whatever, and you have to kind of go through this whole application process again, or does the organization kind of tell you, hey, we want you to go here and do that?
I think at that time, I didn't think I'd ever move up just because we had a good core. And I liked our good core from AAA all the way where I was at in Staten Island. And then obviously with Gene Monahan and Steve Donahue up in the major leagues with Mark being the medical coordinator, Mark Littlefield that hired me.
Yeah.
We had a good core that I never thought I was really happy about it. I could learn it even though I didn't spend that much time with them because of spring training I missed. But when I got in for extended spring training, I knew that we had a good core, and then I was excited to go into that 2005 season. But it was unknown because I was part time in
Yeah.
04. So again, I did look around a little bit to other teams, and the opportunity to either move to a full season or stay in a short season of a Gulf Coast at that time. New York Penn League, Appalachian League were the leagues there, but they're not anymore at that, currently. But at that time, I just kind of was like, all right, I still want to be in this baseball, but where can I go from there? So fortunately for me, at the right time, right place, right moment, the guy that actually interviewed me and I went to Chili's with, he left Double A to go to the Toronto Raptors to be the head athletic trainer for the Toronto Raptors.
Okay.
So then there was some shuffling, right?
Yeah.
The trainer above me and the A ball spot, which was actually in Battle Creek, Michigan at that time,
Okay.
went to Double A because the guy that was in Tampa, which was the high A team, wanted to stay in Tampa because he liked the area and just thought he'd, want to stay here in town. So that left the low A spot open, which was a full season of 140 games. And we are moving from Battle Creek, Michigan to Charleston, South Carolina. And I'm like, oh man, what a great place compared to the home of Kellogg's, right? Kellogg's was in Battle Creek. So I was like, Charleston was great. So I was the first one to open up Charleston and had to move all the stuff down from Battle Creek that got shipped from Battle Creek to Charleston. And then we opened the facility up in Charleston as a Yankee affiliate, which was amazing. Charleston, South Carolina is such a great town, and the travel is it's a lot of travel. I mean, there's teams all the way up in New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
We every once in a while we'd go up there and we'd actually make a flying trip instead of doing it on a bus. But it was an experience, and Charleston was fun. It was a good city, good town, and I spent 3 years in Charleston. And my goal and my thought process is, what's my short-term, long-term goals, right? How long do I want to stay in this, or how long do I want to stay in town in Charleston before moving up or before looking to another team? I gave myself a goal of 5 years.
Yeah.
And then after the 5 years, I'd see where I'm at. So the contracts were yearly. So if a team did end up calling to ask permission to talk to you, which they do have a tampering rule for trainers, you can't talk to them until their contract's up or you get permission. So my goal is 5 years first. If I found something else to apply, then I would ask the Yankees to see if I can approach that. And I never got to that point. I spent the 3 years in Charleston, and then I got the call to go to Double A because the Double A trainer, Zach Womack, actually left to East Carolina to work there. He was, wanted to go back home where he's from in North Carolina. And the guy again in A-ball wanted to stay there, and I got bumped up to Trenton. And again, my same goals, short-term, long-term. Do I like it there? Every year is my short-term goal to get a contract back.
Yeah.
Long-term goal, 5 years. That's kind of what my mindset was through the whole time.
Wow. Yeah. So you're kind of going up and down the coast there for a while. And then got the chance to stay, kind of move across the river, right? And then go there. So tell me a little bit. I mean, just some of the experiences. Obviously, for some of us that have not been connected to minor league ball, I mean, our kind of perspective is from a Bull Durham perspective, which is kind of a bad perspective probably, but there's probably some actual, I mean, legit facts with some of that stuff from that standpoint. What do you take away from your minor league experience that you got to see and kind of learn from?
I agree. The Bull Durham story does exist on some of my road trips. I mean, you have to improvise, right? What you have. The budgets were low.
Yeah.
You couldn't get the special things that I get now in New York.
Yeah.
Just because you had to improvise. I mean, we went to Vermont on a trip when I was in Staten Island. It's one of the oldest stadiums, and I can't remember the year it was built. It was might have been 30s or 40s. The training room or the clubhouse was almost looked like a shack. My trunks were outside around the corner. I had one table that's attached to the bathroom when guys were taking showers. when the game started, you had to walk across the football field to get to the baseball field.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, and the dugouts were so old. You could barely fit a team of 20, a roster of 25. I think we had a roster of 30 at that time in Staten Island. You could barely fit that and the coaching staff.
Yeah.
So it's just, you know, you go to Savannah in the New York or the South Atlantic League at that time. We're right in the shower again, and we're in like a little triangle, and that's where the table's at. And the guys are showering, and literally it's flooding. And there's water everywhere. And I'm like, how am I going to do all this stuff? A guy's doing rehab on a shoulder. If I put them down on the ground, they're doing stuff like, you know, bridges or clams or something like that. And they're getting soaked because of this
your
dirty shower water.
Your swim experience is starting to kick in then. And
yeah, right. yeah, definitely. But yeah, as you keep moving up and, you know, you get to double A and in that league there with Trenton. Trenton's a little older, but you kind of get a little bit better stadium or newer stadiums, right? That's when baseball kind of went those trends of trying to get newer stadium or upgrading the stadiums. Yeah. But after Double A, you know, I was the medical coordinator for the 4 years. So that's when you really get your hands wet with 200 athletes, 200 players, draft, major league rehabs, communicating with the major league staff, and, you know, going from there is. I didn't do AAA. It's a different animal in AAA just because of you've got guys that been in the big leagues before, want to get back there. You know, they're shuffling. They want to try to get back to the major league. So it's a harder league to talk to an individual with being in AAA just because they've been there before. But, you know, with the experience of being the coordinator and getting where I'm at, I think it really still helped out to try to improvise. You still had to make do with what you have, but obviously it just got better every level, and you get a little bit more money, right? Or you get a little bit newer techniques come out, newer technology comes out. So
yeah. And as the medical coordinator, you had your Tampa was kind of your home base, correct? I mean, you were in Tampa. You didn't necessarily you would travel a little bit just for the organization, but you weren't necessarily covering any games or anything. Is that correct?
I would do rehab games assignments if it's a major league rehab.
Okay.
I'd go to the game. So we'd start in the morning, you know, work with Gulf Coast or Extended or wherever we're at, or the rehabs, whoever came down from the minor league affiliates to do rehab, and then go over there as quick as I could for a 2:00, 3:00 report for the major league player, either position player or pitcher, to start getting them ready for a 7:00 game. So it's almost like you're doing a double dip, right?
Yeah.
On those days, and it makes it long days. But obviously, I actually moved down to Florida, Tampa. I've been here probably since 05, 06 that the Yankees actually asked to see if you wanted to move down here. So I ended up doing it, and I thought it was the best move I could have possibly done because obviously the weather is, you can't beat it here.
Yeah, exactly.
That's for sure. But the little things of being involved and going to the complex throughout the off season and doing fantasy camps that I try to get Neil down to do. I always want to try to get Neil down to fantasy camps.
Hey, one of these days.
Here's the thing: he's got in between kids' games and stuff. He's got a little more time now, but I don't know. Would you say that you're probably as busy as you've ever been, just not going to Ball State?
Yeah, everything's filled in.
Yeah,
you know, we got kids all over the country, and we were just out in Hawaii a couple weeks ago visiting Mary and her family, and our newest grandbaby, he's 2 months old now, and little Maverick's four years old. So yeah, so that's fun. Rachel's in San Diego, and we got him in Chicago, Steubenville, Ohio, Connecticut. So yeah, then we got 2 in high school. So we're chasing them around there too.
Yeah.
Remember how many years we talked about that, Neil? To come down to Tampa. How many years we talked about you to come to fantasy camp?
Oh, I know. And I know.
Get you involved in it and help us out.
We got Teeny involved in it though, so maybe I got a chance now.
We did get Dan Teeny involved,
yeah.
No,
well, keep me posted. Maybe we're close to getting something worked out here.
I think you could be. Yeah, I think you could be pretty close to that. Yeah. I mean, that's, that's the thing, is that's the fun part of being an athletic trainer, is you get those opportunities to do something different like that and help out. And I know we've Cowgill has been trying. Billy Cowgill at Kansas has been trying to get Tony to come out to their fantasy camp in September, and I'm like, dude, you just got to go do that. I
Just
mean,
do it.
yeah, just go do it.
Yeah.
But obviously Tony's still busy, working at Henry County Sports Medicine, and
Right.
his schedule's pretty full with some stuff. So, but still, I said, you don't go do that at least. I mean, that's your niche, is all that college basketball stuff, and those guys are obviously coming in and having their fantasy part of the things, and you can still be, in Allen Fieldhouse and have that experience. And so, um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, you got to go do that, Neil.
Yeah. Well, it
Got
was
to.
pretty awesome. Just a few years back, I was there with Joey at one of your spring training games, and you brought me down afterward, and Joey and I got to meet Gene. That was pretty awesome. So, I mean, and just, yeah. All right. You're getting my juices going a little bit now. We'll see.
I do enjoy seeing everyone. It's it's an honor to, get people that have touched me in the past, right? Touched my life where I'm at, to show a little respect for what they've done, to come to a game, and even to go eat before, or, if they don't have time, just to kind of meet up, and Neil coming to do that, and, Teresa, and I see Erica in Minnesota. It's like the little things of different ballparks that I go to, that I kind of just reach out and say, hey, you guys want to come to a game and see everyone. So it's still meeting that connection of people that connected with me and made me who I am now.
Yeah. I like to tell everybody that Ball State athletic training is everywhere, and it is, and you just don't know who you're going to connect with in different places and stuff. And even in the past, I mean, we unfortunately we lost Mark File here about 2.5 months or a month and a half ago or something, but his connection, and not even being a Ball State guy, just from Dick Hoover, but his connection with Ron O'Neal and those guys, I mean, he was still connected with all those people, and still would be in the realm of all that stuff in the NBA. And I think that's the thing about what makes our group kind of cool, is that you have alumni from different schools that stay connected, but it's a cross-sectional thing with us. It's a thing where we understand history and who's been there and done that, and that kind of connect is very rare. And I think it's what makes this program very special. I just wish that our newer group, particularly that's coming out of this entry-level master's program, would have some level of understanding of that. But unfortunately, we're not around to do that, nor are we necessarily invited to come back and talk about that either. So it's unfortunate, but maybe somewhere down the line, we're doing some cool stuff. So, maybe there can be a connection there some way, shape, or form. So,
I still think still pretty cool that we have the Ball State Athletic Training Alumni Association section of the SEC. So that's a pretty good story in itself. You guys were
a lot of names too.
You're very well represented. Yeah. So, we were talking earlier about, Brian's connection with the Orioles, that, now you're with one of their arch rivals. But, you got started there. I think the year before you went, Brian had helped connect Kirk Duncan, I think, to get in there. And then you went in and just did a fabulous job, obviously, and they offered you a job, and then offered you another job without telling you.
Made it a lot easier.
But
it's funny, when I first was thinking about athletic training, when I saw that pamphlet, I went back home back to South Bend, and kind of went to my high school and started working with Ann Machinsky, she's still at the high school now. And she's training my nephews, my nieces right now, and helping them out. But I also worked with John Coddington. John Coddington, the Ball State guy, and he is now training my nephew on this off season before his baseball begins at my high school that I went to. And he's always wants to talk to me and always wants to say hi when my brother-in-law calls when they're working out. And he's like, I'm not going to bother him. He's working. And usually I'm at the complex, but One of these days, I'm going to meet up with John Coddington and say hi to him again and say thank you.
Yeah. No,
another fellow Ring of Honor member.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, definitely. And
you're talking about your connection, kind of a three-way connection there. With Jenny Moshak when you got down to Tennessee, and years ago, Jenny had actually interviewed and was offered a job here at Ball State. She was at the time, I'm trying to remember where she was coming from. Probably a recent master's student, but she ended up going to Penn State for I think a year, and then she ended up at Tennessee, and then you ended up at Tennessee. So just more and more of those stories are out there all the time. So Troy's right. There's a lot there. It's pretty neat.
There definitely is, and I think there's always some kind of connection, and it's interesting to talk to other athletic trainers that if they know athletic training, they oh, you went to Ball State. Do you know blah 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 blah? And you're like, yeah, I think I've heard that name, or yeah, I do know that person, or whatever, or and I think that's the cool thing about it too, is that you can still stay connected even though you're not necessarily there every day. You're still connected in some way, shape, or form, and I think that's what the cool thing is with that. So
it just happened recently with Notre Dame being at Yankee Stadium playing Army. And Rob Hunt's there, and I know Mike Bean, who's the assistant the football team.
Yeah, you're a South Bend guy. You should know.
Yeah. I worked with them too in one summer of doing summer camp, so I got to meet all of them. But Rob and them were wondering where we put them in the clubhouse when they came to town, because they were using the home side. And we just got renovated our home side, and some of the players are still coming through there, like Aaron Judge, and some of the guys are still living up in the area. So they'll come in periodically throughout the day. So we actually put them in our cage area that's down by the dugout for our games. Obviously, we just got it renovated too. We opened up more space and we got it more functional. And Mike and Rob call like, why are we putting down there? Are you putting this in a bad spot? Compared to where you were, why can't we use the training room? And I was like, well, just let me know what you think. This is the closest to the field, so you guys can have easy access. If you don't like it, we'll change it. So as the game went on, I guess they said that it was a great spot, a lot of room and stuff like that. So it's kind of like still it's easy to call and connect with us, right? Where it's all Ball State people, and obviously what we've done in the past, they always connect. We're somehow, some way there's connection.
Yeah. No, they're
warms my heart. Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. But they wanted to complain first, or they were just yanking your chain.
Yeah. I mean, literally, like I told them, I was like, some guys are coming in, and they even actually used that Saturday for the game. 2 or 3 players are in that day, and I was like, sorry, we need this facility right now.
Yeah. No, I mean that's I would when we go play at I don't know, Banker's Life. Yeah, that's what they call it. And I would reach out to David Craig, and Dave's not a Ball State alum, but I'm like, are we getting to use the Pacer athletic trainer? And he's like, oh hell no, we're not. You're not doing that. I'll put a Hydroc in there for you. You're good in the locker room right where you're at. So, but I was just messing with him in that aspect to do that too. But David was always good about that too. So, all right,
and they have loving it too. So it's funny. That's the best part about it.
Yeah. So you are. You're in Tampa. You're kind of in your I guess your routine. You kind of know what you're doing and stuff. And then you get a call like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Or I mean, kind of walk me through that a little bit.
Obviously, it's a good thing where we're at with all our staff up in New York with the assistants, and then Mike Shuck, who's the director of our sports medicine department and physical therapy as well, because he's the ATC PT.
Yeah.
So we kind of do it together. And when the transition was to put us at the head and him being the director in 2020, the goal was for me to stay down in Tampa in case guys come back, because more and more players started living in Tampa.
Right.
And then him being in New York, and then one of our assistants would be in Dominican. So we kind of had 3 areas covered if the guys wanted to come back anyway. way, shape, or form. And then we also have a major league physical therapist too, living in New York. So we're pretty well covered either for a physical, or guys living in New York want to go into the stadium, and then here in Tampa, guys moving back. So usually a typical kind of routine is, November. We went so late this year, which is great, but gives us some time at home. Let them kind of recover and recuperate. And literally the guys probably some took a week off, some took no time off, some took roughly about 3 to 4 weeks right around this time period. So I just started going back right now, and it'll be in the morning where players would call and say, "Hey, I'm coming to the complex. Can we meet?" And it's a player's decision, so it's not like we can have them come or invite them. It's a player decision. So when they do come, at least they would connect with me or our strength coach, and then we'd kind of set a time of, it's like 9 or 10 o'clock. They kind of get into the building, the facility, and go through an average day, but it's not as long. We get 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, we're done. But they're not light baseball activities right now. It's more focused on kind of the strength conditioning portion, and getting their legs with some agility and some movement and some conditioning. And once December really picks up towards the new year, that's when they're going to start really hitting, catching bullpens. They're going to start doing more sport specific. But they're at a slow spot right now of throwing, and could be 2, 3, 4 times a week. But it just depends where they're at in their program.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, you're going to be down there. I mean, because sorry, I'm a little bit behind in all professional sports anymore, it seems like. But so the Yankees are down there for spring training anyway, correct? Yeah. So you really you've got this time from November or October or whatever it might be in Tampa through spring training. And then you really don't go back to New York until April?
Now we start end of March, but
End of March, yeah. Okay.
We kind of started, I think it was like the 25th or 26th, 7th area right now, but we'll travel or break camp right around March 25th, 26th area.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm in Tampa the rest of the time, with going to winter meetings or doing some player visits if we have that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. And your facility down there, I mean, it is kind of the I mean, obviously you have stuff at the stadium. You just talked about remodeling all that stuff, but that's really kind of where all the big time stuff is, correct? I mean, what you're using every day on rehabs and stuff like that is all in this facility in Tampa, correct?
Yeah. We're at the player development complex right now, just because the George Steinbrenner Field, where we usually have our spring training games and facility, is under renovation again. We did 2 renovations. Last year was at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
And then this year, once spring training left or broke this past year in 24, they started the renovation for Steinbrenner Field. So we're getting a brand new training room, weight room, food area. It's just a better flow of where the players can like bounce from one place to another, so they can be ready for a spring training day. But I didn't know I was a construction worker here, so we get down to Florida right away, and the administrative for all the construction people want to know, like, do we want this? Do we want this? Do we want this? So Mike and I are going back and forth from he's in New York and I'm here, so I'm going in. I'm measuring everything. I'm doing this. I'm, trying to decide what tables we're getting, what whirlpools we're getting, and it's just like it's a lot, right? They're at that phase where they're doing the drywall, and if we don't do it now, they're gonna have to bust up with some drywall. So I just went the other day and I was showing one of our PTs around, and 3 people within probably 20 minutes were saying, "Oh, are you here to change something up again?" And the PT's like, "Damn, man, like you've got a reputation over here already." And I'm like, "Yeah, there's a lot of changes that we wanted to make." So
you are the project manager, and
it's funny. I mean, I'm showing them the food room and all that, and one of the Turner, higher ups at Turner Construction is like, "Are you here to change stuff up again? You want me to go with you?" And I'm like, no, I'm just showing around this time. And it happened 2 or 3 times. I'm like, geez, maybe I should stop going.
You're kind of like the, what is it, the angel of death when they come around, like, what's going on? We got
Yeah,
changes coming. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, everything's at our minor league player development right now. Minor league players are there. They're meshing with the major league guys, so it's good. It's good putting the whole organization kind of one area.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? I mean, obviously you 21 years of doing this. I mean, what do you think you see has been the biggest kind of um I don't want to say changes, but maybe trends that you've seen kind of grow kind of with you in your career? Has it been recovery, nutrition, strength conditioning training? What do you think has changed or trended the most?
Uh, Definitely in our area for recovery, we have PEMF machine, the pulse electric magnetic field. We have numerous chiropractors that do dry needling. That's the biggest trend right now, the dry needling.
Yeah.
The players absolutely love it. It seems to help them out, balancing out with exercises after. And it's a huge. I don't personally do it. I'm not certified in it, but
Right.
I still stick with some of my myofascial and some, muscle energy stuff that I've been trained on. But the manual therapy is huge.
Yeah.
To keep these guys going for 162 games. And then you balance out with afterwards we have a hyperbaric chamber that's become big. We have a salt deposition
Yeah.
float tank. I didn't think that took a lot of headway this year, but guys did use it. The hyperbaric was the one that took the most.
Yeah.
The treatments are hour long, so the guys really had to come early, depending on where their schedules are at. So it's hour treatments, and it kind of logs up right away and quick.
Yeah.
But the strength conditioning side too is really important. That blend between the two is really important to have the two together. Literally we have a window and we can see in the weight room, and they can see what we're doing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a good idea to kind of put the two together where we're really, really next to each other and we can communicate. And that's the other big thing is like communicating in all fronts with the front office, all the other trainers, PTs, chiropractors, dry needling, and even the physicians and the strength coaches. But yet the players are the main thing why we're here, right? Have to fill them in on a lot of things that that you wouldn't think. They want to know everything. The players are getting smarter, right?
Yeah.
There's outside people that are always talking to them. Hey, I can get you better. I can do this. I can do that. We agree. We meet up with them, but a lot of some of the players have guys outside of us to treat as well. So we kind of try to blend them together and try to communicate with them the best we can of what we see on a daily basis compared to what they may see every other road trip or every other week when they see that player. So it's just, again, the dynamic of communication, which is hard for a lot of people. To communicate with everyone, and there's so many people now. Our staffs are really big, so we have to communicate with the pitching department, the hitting department, manager, bench coach. It's a lot of people to communicate with.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of ultimate. Where I always tell people, like, communication is key. Everything else seems relatively easier, right? You went to school for athletic training, or you went to school for that sports medicine side. You just keep up with the trends, right? We have guys that do dry needling, check. We have guys do that manual therapy, check. Like, stay with the trends and listen to the players with their trends, and I think everything blends together usually, and it kind of comes to develop as a good team.
Yeah. No, believe it or not, that's even trickling down to the high school level. I mean, we're for the school I work at now, Eastern Hancock. Right before I got there, built a 5,000 square foot weight room, has a full-time strength conditioning coach that teaches advanced PE classes. If you're an athlete at that school, you're probably in that advanced PE class, or it's highly encouraged. And then I have these parents that they take their kids to, if they're baseball, softball, they're taking them to their hitting coaches or their throwing coaches, or they're doing workouts on that. And so I've had to kind of like emphasize that too. Like, you got to tell me what you're doing outside of here, because it's going to help me make my decision what I'm going to do with you here, even for the short amount of time I may have with them. But it's good to hear, you know, at the highest level, that communication is still the crux of how everything moves. And if you don't have that communication, and I've told kids this, if you don't tell me, like I had our quarterback this year was going to a throwing coach and he's having shoulder issues. And I said, you keep coming in here telling me you're having shoulder pain and all this other stuff, and I'm giving you some stuff to do. And then, oh, by the way, I'm going to see this throwing coach every Sunday, and I've got restrictions on you here. What are you doing with the throwing coach? He goes, well, my dad's paying for it, so I'm just throwing. I'm like, no. We can't do that.
Yeah.
But if you don't tell me that, you're just, no wonder you're coming in and still in the hole with that stuff. So, it's not, obviously not at the level that you're at, but it's still crazy with what goes on. And I think that's really cool that that's what you're really talking about here is that you've got all these moving parts, but at the end of the day, trying to keep everybody on the same page is really the key to success, and especially getting people better, with that. So cool.
Yep. Doctors are still just as important, right, in the whole grand scheme of things. But obviously, if they translate to that, how do we translate to the coaching staff and you modify that lingo, right? That they didn't know. And you go into meetings with, I could have a meeting with Aaron Boone and be like, he's like, okay, Tim, give me the gist of it, right? You got to think about how you're going to communicate a short-term thought process going into that meeting. He doesn't want to hear all the other specifics, right? Can he play or not, right? And then you go to a pitching coach that may, okay, what does this entail? Wants a little bit more information, and you got to tell them, it's right. It's the tale of two sides, and it ultimately all comes down to one thing: is obviously who can play and keep them on the field, and hopefully we can win. Right? And that's the ultimate goal is the W.
I tell kids, and I heard this actually from Bill Polian, and you've probably heard it too, and Neil's heard me say this a lot, but I tell kids all the time that the only ability that matters is availability. And so you could do all this other crazy stuff, but if you're not available, the next person up is going to take your spot. That person's available, they're going to play, and that's the thing. So you've got to be able to communicate to me what's going on, and I'll try to help you be available. Sometimes it doesn't always work out that way, but yeah, if you can do that, that's great.
That's our goal, right? That's our one ultimate goal: keep them on the field and being available for them.
So I got to ask you this. I mean, we've had a long history in this program of people being a part of big events, but I don't think we've had anybody that's ever been a part of a World Series. I mean, how was that experience this year? I mean, did you at one point in time, did you step back and go, how did I get here? Did you have that moment a little bit? Yeah.
I still think I do that every day, to be honest with you. When the season starts, I try to sneak out to the field real quick and just say a little piece, right? Whatever we need to do is keep the guys healthy, keep going on a daily grind every day with them, communicate, and just a little bit of talking outside. Some people might look at me because I'm outside on the field and this guy's talking to himself, right? But you're right. I've been waiting and hoping for a World Series, and the Yankees tradition is every year. Ryan Cashman, Hal Steinbrenner, they put it out there that we're going to be successful. We want to be in the World Series and win the World Series. Every year they do that. They always put the best team out there. I got up in the major leagues in 2016 as an assistant and had some fortunate runs of ALCSs, and unfortunately we lost to the Houston Astros a couple of times. And, I wanted that one opportunity to win it, and we did it in Cleveland. It was pretty special. I'll have to send you, but there's a couple pictures of us afterwards holding the AL pennant trophy and, going out to Dodger Stadium for the World Series. It was always talk. A Yankee Dodger World Series would have been great, outstanding. That's what people want, right? And it finally happened, and opening up in LA. And, you get out there, we took a staff picture, and you're like, this is real, right? And you're thinking, we worked hard 162 games, ALDS, ALCS, and it comes full circle, and you're like, man, this is really cool. And then you look behind the Dodgers dugout, our dugout, and you see like Jason Bateman and Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers. They're first row right behind us. And you're just like, man, is this real? And then Brad Paisley playing the National Anthem on his guitar, his electric guitar, and you're like, man, this is it. And it was pretty exciting. I did have to look up a couple times and just thank my dad and everyone that was involved and who's been there and helped me out and put me where I'm at, and really was my guiding light. Everyone was. And a couple of days I had to do that with the first game in New York, first game in Dodger Stadium, but we fell up short. We fell short to the Dodgers, but hopefully we can get back, and that's kind of the goal again.
Yeah. No, I think sometimes we get caught up in what we do every day. And I've always encouraged people to do this, but to take a step back and just kind of like take it all in, and because we're so focused on this is our job and this is how we're going to do it, and we got to take care of these guys or girls or whatever it is, and we don't take enough time to kind of soak it in a little bit, and because we work just as hard too as the athletes do, and I think that's wherever you're at, whether it's a World Series or an NCAA championship or a state finals, you got to take that time to kind of to look back on that. I mean, that's my experience was in 1991. I was doing my internship with the Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles, and we're in Wembley Stadium playing the Bills for the American Bowl. It's a preseason game. It's not a huge deal, but I'm like, I was like, how the hell did I get here? I'm in London, England. I'm from a small town in Indiana. Grew up on a farm. How the hell did I get to Wembley Stadium? And I think those are important to remember. And our experiences and our mentors, Neil, are a big part of all that too. And I think that's what's really cool about our group and I caught a couple of games. Otherwise, in between my own events that I was covering in October and stuff. But it was cool to know that you were there. Like, hey, that's a Ball State guy there in the dugout for the Yankees, and I think that's what, again, I think it's cool that you did that, because as athletic trainers, we always talk about, I can't believe I got to come in at 5 a.m. or I can't believe I got to stay late, or I'm on this road trip away from my family, or da 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 da. But sometimes you get some really cool opportunities that you don't get a chance to really enjoy. So good for you. Yeah.
No, thank you. I hope we get back there. And obviously, again, like I said, Cash and Hal Steinbrenner always put the best team forward and all their staff. But I hope we get back there, and they're doing they're busy now, that's for sure, with winter meetings coming up next week, this coming week, and they're pretty busy. So they're doing it every year. They do it. So
that's awesome. No. All right. Well, I'm gonna start wrapping this up a little bit. Neil, do you have anything you wanna ask Tim here real quick?
No, just this has been an amazing visit, Tim. Thank you so much for your time, and I know we were close to connecting a few times. I actually made it to Yankee Stadium, and we were texting before the game during the rain delay. But and then unfortunately the Chicago weekend didn't work out. But we'll keep our eyes open for opportunities, and love to get together with you and catch up a little bit more in person. But this has been really, really special to be able to just be with you here on the Zoom call and the podcast, and just all the best to you. And I'm right there with you. Hope you guys are getting back there again and take the next step next year.
Yeah. No, thank you. I appreciate it. All you guys are on my shoulders watching, that's for sure. I can tell you that. Everyone.
That's awesome.
From Ball State to Tennessee with Jenny, to everyone. There's so many names, but everyone's guiding me through everything, and keeping me on my toes, to be honest with you, because you guys kept me on my toes, and that's how you learn, right? If we're in a disagreement, we're in a good spot because everything's not always happy and hunky dory, right? With our daily basis.
For sure.
If we're in a disagreement that we can compromise, that's the beauty of athletic training and/or sports medicine. The ultimate goal is to keep them on the field.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, thanks for being one of those guys that really makes this special, Tim. It's really proud of you, and it's been great following your career. So
thank you. Thank you, everyone. Everyone, and an honor to have everyone vote. Obviously, get me into the Ring of Honor, and I know you guys had a part in it, and it's just an honor. It's only one word to sum it up. The Ring of Honor is an honor. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well deserved, and welcome aboard.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's like I like to tell people, there's I mean, you look up there and you're in awe of especially the Ball State folks that are in the Ring of Honor and what they've done in the past. And then you look up there and there's some other characters in there too that that I'm glad I'm associated with. But if they denied, if they said we saw you with so and so, I'd be like, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
Well, listen, Tim, thanks for coming on the podcast, and I'm gonna stop recording, but stay on a little bit so I can make sure things are going okay. And I'm gonna do a little exit here, and then we're good. So we've gone off the roll with Tim Lentych. Well, I want to thank Tim for coming on the podcast. It was also great to have Neil on there to kind of guide the conversation along, because it was a great conversation. And again, that's kind of why I'm doing these, is I really want people to hear these stories of these athletic trainers. Right now, the primary focus is Ball State athletic trainers, particularly Ring of Honor members, that have great stories to tell about their careers and where they've been and who they've come in contact with. And Tim's pathway to Major League Baseball, as you can tell, was very unique and was special to hear him talk about that. So again, we're going to continue on with these. We've had a great season so far. I'm looking forward to having a few more guests on here. Again, I'm going to try to diversify a little bit this season and have a few more on here that are not connected to Ball State but are connected to me, and I just want to sit down and talk to them. So you can reach out to us, give us some feedback at offtherollpodcast@gmail.com. That way you can leave a comment on X or Twitter at offtherollpod1 is the handle on that Twitter account. You can also leave comments on Spotify if you're listening to it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. There's some ways you can rate us a little bit now too. You can give us a good rating. Of course, all the podcasters are asking for a 5-star rating, but hey, let us know what you think. Honestly, I'm fine with that. I'm always trying to find ways to improve it. So, and you can reach out to me on my personal Facebook page. Just give some comments on that as well. So hopefully everybody has a great Christmas. We should have another podcast coming out after Christmas, and get that in the books before 2024 leaves us, and then we start on 2025. And like I said, I'm going to be lining up some great guests for at least the first 4 months of 2025 as time allows. This is still fun to do, and I love sitting down with people and talking to them. So have a happy holidays, and we'll hopefully get one more in before the end of 2024.